Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second Growth and Sustainability meeting of 2025. My name is Joanne Cheechak. I'm a councillor with the town of, Smithville, of West Lincoln, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. Pardon me. We have two public meetings tonight, and we'll be going to those in a moment. But before I get there, I need to just make a few announcements. So prior to commencing with the Growth and Sustainability meeting agenda, I will provide the following. Comments may be made but from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda. That is a section of the agenda. The public may submit written comments for matters that are on the agenda to Justin Paylove or J. Paylove at westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting for consideration by the committee. Comments received after 4:30 on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting, and comments submitted are included in the record. This meeting is being live streamed as well as being recorded and available on the Township's website. Before proceeding, we'll continue with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrock, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Now I'll turn to members of committee to ask if there are any disclosure of pecuniary interests or conflict. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have a public meeting, two this evening, the first being a site alteration application. And the purpose of this public meeting is being held in accordance with the Municipal Act SO 2001, Chapter 25, and Township Procedural Bylaw, and the Township of West Lincoln Site Alteration Bylaw to consider a request for a site alteration permit for the additional material already brought to the site, as well as an additional 3,000 cubic meters or 300 truckloads to finalize the front site works and 952 loads of material to raise the elevation of the rear yard. This alteration is located at 3118 Grassy Road. It is file number 3000-001-24, and it is with Sekinder Golacha. In May 2024, Council approved site alteration application 3000-001-24 to permit 4,617 cubic meters of material to the site to complete grading around the new dwelling. The applicant has exceeded the original permit and has brought approximately 7,310 cubic meters or 731 truckloads of material to the property, including granular, topsoil, rubble, and earthfill material. The applicant is requesting a site alteration permit for the additional material already brought to the site, as well as an additional 3,000 cubic meters or 300 truckloads to finalize the front site works and 952 loads of material to raise the elevation of the rear yard. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive comments and answer questions of the public regarding the site alteration application. We stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the application, and any comments received will be taken into account by the Growth and Sustainability Committee meeting in their consideration. Mr. Clerk, please advise of the method and dates by which notice of the public meeting was given.
Proper notice was given by way of email circulation to agencies and mail circulation to all residents within 120 meters of the subject property on February 10th, 2025. Public notice was also posted to the subject property, the Township website, and the Township Administration Building on February 10th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I believe the Director of Growth and Sustainability is leading off for staff. Mr. Burma?
Thank you, Madam Chair. An application for site alteration has been submitted by Mr. Brian Enter, an engineer on behalf of the property owners of 311 Grassy Road. 311 Grassy Road is located in the northwest corner of Grassy Road and Young Street. And it is a 13.5 acre parcel of land zoned agricultural. And the owners are currently building a new dwelling on that property, fronting onto Grassy Road. As the chair had mentioned, in May of 2024, Township Council approved a site alteration permit for just over 4,600 loads of material to be brought to the site, approximately 462 truckloads, for material and grading work around the proposed and now being constructed new dwelling. The site alteration bylaw as written allows for only up to 40 loads of material to be imported in relation to a building permit. So the applicants requested, since they desired to have more, they requested a site alteration permit to Township Council. Our Township site alteration bylaw requires that any site alteration over 1,000 cubic meters requires council approval. And that's approximately 100 loads. In the fall of 2024, the Township received a number of report of concerns through our report of concern link on our website regarding the importation of fill on this property. The agent on behalf of the owner indicated that at that time approximately 700 loads of material were brought to the site. And subsequently, the Township put an order to comply against the property to stop any additional fill material being brought to the property. The owners did immediately stop bringing fill to the property and retained an engineer to work towards submitting this site alteration application that we have before us. The agent also provided to the Township all the tracking information regarding those 700 truckloads approximately that had come to the property. And they've also provided information of what was within each of those truckloads. So of the 700 loads that were brought to the property, the agent indicated that approximately 50 loads was granular material related to the construction of the house. So the gravel as part of the basement and other material for the actual construction of the house. 120 loads were topsoil, and 108 of those loads were rubble material to create a driveway access to the rear of the property. In addition to the material already imported to the site, the applicant is also requesting an additional 300 loads to finalize grading around the dwelling, and an additional 952 loads to do grading in the rear yard. And they've indicated that is for the purposes of planting an orchard. The applicants have also provided the Township with a lot grading plan, which is included in the staff report, as well as a truck haul route, which was also included in our staff report. And they propose to have truck access coming from Hamilton, from Centennial, going down Regional Road 20, and then up on Grassy Road. The site alteration bylaw, the Township site alteration bylaw requires that a public meeting be held before council makes their decision, and that all neighbors within 120 meters be circulated before council makes a decision. Tonight is a public meeting, and administration has an information report also being presented this evening with a future recommendation report, which would come at a future meeting. The Township received one written comment from a member of the public prior to the deadline for report submission, but over the weekend and today have received multiple additional comments, which I believe the clerk has provided to council. Staff have not had an opportunity to go through all these comments at this time, but we'll go through all of those comments before bringing any recommendation report in the future. And that concludes my overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Is the applicant or the representative here to speak to the application this evening? Sir, did you want to come forward and make comment regarding, pardon me, this application?
So I took over this property, the infill that was coming in just last year. I know there was stuff that happened before I was there with the property. Sorry.
Sorry, could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, it's Jeremy Nichols.
Thank you. And your role is to manage the fill that's coming in?
Well, all the importation on the property for backfill of the property and everything, building the roads, the drainage and that.
Okay, go forward.
Sorry, just as you go. So we had meetings with your bylaw on site and other people from the township. We had a verbal agreement to continue. We thought we even asked if we needed to apply for further importation, which we would have done right away. They said, just continue, you're fine. So we did. And once we got the letter, we shut down. We had a sweeper for the road. You know, we have pictures of the road where the machine would go out up to 10 times a day to sweep the road. And at the end of each day, we take pictures multiple times through the day as we were getting many complaints. So we were handing those pictures in throughout the day to Tim Carr, just to show that we were doing what we were supposed to do. The temperature was too cold for us to use our water truck to wash the road. So we've been following everything the township has been asking us over and over with the complaints, as every construction site has complaints. So we just, the homeowner wants to have more of a leveled backyard and so he could grow. And this is what we were trying to get him with certified fill.
Are those your comments?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. This is now the time for public comments. Are there any oral or written submissions from anyone present in the meeting? And Kevin, is there anyone online? So is there anyone here wishing to come forward and speak? Please state your name for the record prior to commencing your comments.
You just have to push it up. Thank you.
I guess we'll start with our names.
Yeah. My name is Tony Vandenarden, and I live right next to the property we are talking about. I'm a farmer. This is my son, Piet. And my wife Marlene is behind me. We live in West Lincoln since 1983. We're farmers. And we are farmers of this community. This is a very beautiful and quiet area. We really like it there. We have, did the city council receive the pictures that were taken from
Aerial photos.
the aerial photos?
Okay.
The number 2, for instance. Now, if you look on the picture, the second one, that was taken in 2022, and you can see on that picture that there is only one pond on that farm, and you can see already before the applicant that wanted to make the alteration of the site that he already put truckloads in around the pond. There was one pond on the farm, and that was the first thing he filled in. Okay?
This is before the permit.
Yes. Now, to give you a little bit of an oversight, the owners before already, they planted trees on this farm. It was a government incentive. They used black walnuts and red oaks. And he was a farmer, and he sell honey. His name was, his business was Mountain Meadows Honey. And then when he sold his property to the next gentleman, he was a farmer as well. He planted 4,000 cedar trees, and he grew he raised grass-fed ducks that were laying eggs for egg production. And he had some other farm animals. Now, in March 2024, there were 4 18-wheelers, tractor trailers, lined up on the grassy road, and they were filled with limestone shale. And they were planning to deposit that on the farm, but I don't know who it was, but it was some people of the region. They stopped them, and those trucks were diverted away from the place. Then in April 2024, I received a letter from the township that they wanted to apply for a site alteration file, and they asked permission for the 462 truckloads imported foreign fill for grading around the residents and for future farm use. It sounded very excessive to me, but I didn't go to the meeting. And that was a big mistake. Because truck after truck were lined up on Young Street, and they were ready, and they put in truck after truck on this property. And it kept going and it kept going. You wonder who's doing the counting. And what they did is they compacted the soil in there, go over with bulldozer to level it out and level it out. And that's, every farmer knows that if it is for future farm use, this is a big violation, because if you pack that soil, it becomes totally useless to farm anything on it. Because a normal, undisturbed topsoil works like a sponge. If you get a flash rain, it absorbs the water, and it slowly will bring it back to the lower areas so that it can run off. When it is in the summer really dry, that sponge releases it to the plants. It's called capillary action, okay? Now, what happened is it will cause water damage and severe water runoff. Then I received a new letter in February 18, 2025 in the mail, and I couldn't believe my eyes, because in the letter it says that the person or the property owner who had already violated the excess dirt from the original 460 load, he violated, and he put already 60% more loads in than was agreed on. Okay, and now he wants to bring in an additional 1,252 loads of dirt. Now, if you cannot trust him with before, how can we trust him with what he wants to bring in the property right now? And I would like to know who is doing the counting. That doesn't make no sense. Who is overseeing this? The amount of trucks, because there was lots of trucks already on this property. Now, the amount of foreign fill has nothing to do with grading the property for site drainage for farm use, because it makes the soil useless for farm use. And once this happened, it's very difficult or almost impossible to reverse it. Every farmer knows that. Now, I wonder who is liable for what happened all there, okay? As a farmer, I find that when I purchase a field, I'm actually only a steward of that field. And someday, when that property goes to somebody else, I am responsible that my property should be as good or better than when I have received it. And that is a total violation with the other field we were talking about. Yeah, that is so far what I thought I should share with you.
I'll take over. My name's Pete. Can you hear me? Sounds appropriate. Maybe I should put it closer. So we shared 3 aerial photos. There's a date on the bottom left corner. So the second photo that's got the initial fill that my dad's referring to, right beside the pond, is before a permit was applied for. But what's interesting with this photo is it also shows existing farm buildings before this property was purchased and taken over. The third photo shows the site under construction. This is May of last year. So that presumably would have been at the time of the initial permit.
Madam Chair, if I may, if I could ask, do you guys have extra photos? Because we don't actually have the photos in front of
Yeah,
us.
I
If you
have.
have an extra photo that we can just pass around here? 'Cause-
Yes, I was just asking the clerk to do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
But it appears that the photos were not included in our package, so if you could give them to the clerk, there's only one set, okay.
Actually, I'll send mine. That's fine. I'll try my best to do an interpretive dance to try and explain them.
I
You
do
have my
want to
hard copy.
advise everyone here, just before you commence your comments again, is that there were apparently 35 to 40 pictures that were sent in today with the correspondence that was received by our clerk. None of those have made it through to the packages that have been given to council. So if you want to speak to a photograph, hopefully you've got a copy that we can pass through the council members just to show them what it is you're speaking about.
Okay, just to be clear, I did meet the deadline.
Oh, it's nothing about the
All
deadline,
three
it's
of-
just a technical issue that's occurred, and I wanted to be straight up with you. We don't have the pictures right now, so if you've got an extra copy, if you'll give it to the clerk, he will pass it around to the members of committee so that we know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I understand there's technicalities as well.
Sometimes we
I
have
did
trouble
receive
with
a
the computers.
confirmation that said
Today, it's just
those-
pictures.
I did receive a confirmation saying those photos would have been distributed and at least the site plan as well. Does this look familiar at all or no? Okay, great. Great. Because I hope to speak to that as well, so that's great. Like my dad said, I'm Pete, the son, the only son. Right next door, our property, I grew up my entire life directly south of this lot, so that's across Grassy Road. Our lot is a matched size, so we're very familiar with it. Actually, Mr. Klasenka, like I used to mow his property when he was away on vacation, so I know his property pretty good. He also had the fastest lawnmower in town. I find a couple components here, and I'm not a farmer personally. That's why I asked my dad to speak. But I am familiar with building, and I can tell, I mean, the third photo is an aerial of construction movement. Photos don't lie. If it looks brown, there's a piece of equipment that went over top. It's also noted how much brown there is. So the site plan that you did receive has 2 colors. There's a light gray, which was the initial application, and there's a dark brown beyond, which is the proposed application. What I found interesting as a drawer is that the second application didn't show the back property line. So when I was asked to review this with my dad, I said, how far are they actually going? So what this site plan represents is literally an overlay of the 2. And it's as good as we can represent. I think it's accurate. It's got a scale on the bottom as well. Inside the box, it refers to like lot coverage in terms of how many loads, which is in alignment with our introductory from Garrett, along with the additional fill after the fact. I guess putting on my farmer glasses and farmer hat, I find it interesting that the initial property had 4 buildings on it that were for agricultural use. There was a 2-story barn, there was a building for equipment repair, and there was a building large enough that you could have a full wood shop inside, in addition to a full garage, which was built later. That garage is the only thing represented on any of their site plans, and it's called Metal Garage. Using my farmer hat, I'm thinking, if I were a farmer, the first thing I did, and I remember hearing stories of my dad when he started, the first thing you do is you tend to the land. That's your value. That's your agricultural component. This site, every single agricultural building has been taken down first. Actually, the pond's been filled first. Also, the location of the dwelling. If I'm trying to estimate where the original house was, it's probably where that driveway pinches in, where there's going to be a future water feature of some sort. The proposed dwelling is twice as deep into the lot, twice as deep into the agricultural land. Also worth noting on the site plan, there's 2 proposed septic locations. The initial proposed septic location is what I would say somewhat reasonably placed behind the house. I know you have to be 5 meters from a residential dwelling, but the second proposed septic plan is way further back. And again, it's like you're not going to be, I mean, you know that the trees will grow better on top of that portion, but I don't think that the tree roots are very beneficial on top of a septic spot. That is not for agricultural growth. Some of it is about the stewardship of the land and how much land you're choosing to cover. What's noted is the fill deliveries were stopped because of intervention from a local authority, presumably a building inspector or someone. You can't take that soil back. When it was stopped, the estimate is 60% more than was initially allowed. That's after the fact. We can't take that soil back. It's interesting, I find it sad that the owner's not here. I really wish that we could have met the owner, any of the neighbors could have met the owner to a council meeting like this. Because a lot of the questions that we might have about how much fill, what's your intention, is it going to be an orchard, would be really helpful to hear.
May I say a little thing too? I got very frustrated from the tailgates of the dump trucks going all the time, and I saw that they were exceeding it far, so I went to the township here, and I talked to a township person here, and he said they were going to have a look and see what they would do something about it. Nothing happened. And then about a month later, the same person, by accident, he butt phoned me. So I had him on the phone again, and I said, how come it's possible that still nothing gets done? He said, well, we are kind of short-staffed, but we're going to arrange another meeting with the people that are dumping that soil. Because you say they're still dumping? I said, yes, they are still dumping. Still again, nothing happened.
The initial application was for, in their terms, like their words, was site drainage for future farm use. But the second application just refers to front yard and rear yard. There's no comment about farm use. Actually, it's interesting that there's no farm building even proposed on the site at all. Like, where are you going to store your tractor? Where are you going to store the bush hog? So the proposed application, we're saying 300, I'm just using truckloads in my boxed dimension here, 300 truckloads for the front yard, additional, and 952 for the rear yard. And I keep using the percentages back to the initial application, the initial 462, and why is because that is what Town of West Lincoln has approved and seems sensible and reasonable. That total, they're proposing 270% more, to a grand total of 430% more than the initial application. The lot, including with the Google aerial view, you're more than 50% already is where they're already touching. You're 3/4 of the lot, and note how there's trees in the back. That's a lower portion. The comment from the gentleman who's responsible with some of the fill and delivery is to level out. Well, how much are we going to level out and compact? If you're going to farm for an orchard, you can't plant into the trees in the back. And if you're leveling out, you can tell where the wet spots are going to be just looking at two-dimensional plans, knowing that you're adding that much fill. Now, I think it's worth noting, because there's gray text on the left there. Just down the street, 7683 Young Street. I was just in high school when I remember them dumping there, and it's excessive. That site was also agricultural, probably around the same size, and that one was EP and A for environmental protection. That site had a tremendous amount of concrete chunks delivered, and I invite you to have a little drive-by or have a look from Google Street View. It is useless. That's an agricultural joke, and it's embarrassing. Now, I'm not against sensible development. I think anybody should be able to make West Lincoln their home and build their dream house. But you need to be reasonable, and you need to be transparent. It'd be helpful if you talk to neighbors. We submitted as well 38 signatures from neighbors, much of which are represented today. That list, every signature represents 38 people that are concerned, and they're all within the close proximity. I realize there's like a Town of West Lincoln slogan that we're sitting right next to. Your future naturally. Industry, progress, and agriculture. My question to you is, what does an agricultural zone mean to you? This is not just a single property. This is a precedent that we're setting. There are more sites that are getting excessive dumping. Why is West Lincoln the dumping ground for other developments elsewhere? And when do we put a stop to it? That's all.
Thank you to both of you. We have those diagrams and pictures that you submitted. I'm going to give my copies to the clerk, and if you wish to receive them back, you'll be able to get them from him. I'm just going to call for anyone else in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak. Come forward, give us your name, please, for the record.
Hi, neighbors. My name is Brittany Garrard Amos.
I'm Timothy Amos.
I never thought I would be in a meeting about Grassy, Ontario, because I never knew Grassy existed until last year. Last year, our realtor sent us a listing for our beautiful, modest, raised ranch bungalow on Yonge Street, which just happens to be directly behind this new build. We saved every penny to start a life in Grassy in this home with our 4 kids, and we're very excited to be a part of the community. Immediately, we were received with open arms and truly got a West Lincoln warm, hospitable welcome. And we are the kind of street that people walk their dogs and stop and chat. Someone drops muffins off. People like their privacy. They live in a rural area, but they also fight strong for their community. And we've felt nothing but that since we purchased the house last summer. Neighbors coming up to the young couple on the street who just put everything into having a home right here. And it's emotional to be on the end where people are concerned for your property and for your livelihood, concerned, stopping you. Hey, not sure what's going on over there, but something doesn't feel right. And you guys are directly behind this property, and we just don't want to see something happen to your investment. And, you know, this is not the way I wanted to meet the neighbors. This is not who I am. I like privacy, too. I want to do what I want to do in my home. But when you come and you make decisions and you impact other people's livelihood, other people's enjoyment of their property, their investments, they are choosing to enter into a conversation and now to an issue with a family that really didn't want to start anything. And so this is near and dear to my heart because, like I said, we saved up every penny to buy the modest branch bungalow directly behind this house. And I was looking forward to meeting this neighbor. Even tonight, like was mentioned by Tony's son, I was looking forward to meeting the neighbor. I don't want to be on bad terms, but I also believe that West Lincoln is about community and respect. And whether you live in the city or the country, if you're doing something that impacts immediately people around you, that matters. And to feel disrespected, to feel that decisions are being made, to feel that loads are continuing to come in and people are making comments to you and living with anxiety of like, is this going to start to affect my property? That doesn't feel great. And it didn't feel great to feel like, you know, the ball was dropped with the town, so I heard, with following up with the loads and different verbal promises. It's not a great feeling knowing that that happened. It's not great that we just happened to move in the wrong time when this had already started happening. We did notice water seeping between the two property lines. We have a swimming pool. The fence posts are rotted out, and there is water seeping right directly between our property lines already. And we're talking, the fill hasn't even stopped according to this process of seeking more fill. So we're already seeing water seeping onto our lawn. Well, what about our enjoyment of our property? What about our protection of our investment? What about our 4 children being able to run around their yard? Like, it feels wrong that when we find out it was only stopped because someone said something, because they were caught on to. It doesn't feel very honest, and it doesn't feel very good, and it doesn't feel like grassy. From everything I've seen from people who live in this community, we have each other's backs, and I feel so supported by my community here, so thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's about our property, it's about the whole neighborhood, it's about setting a precedent for following rules. And so we are worried, and my husband will speak to it, but we are primarily worried about drainage. There was nothing proposed. Where is all of this water going? Because as we can see all the snow thawing right now and the implications of that, the ditches filling. Unfortunately, I was a witness at an accident on Wolverton Road last night. A motor vehicle accident where the ditches were filling and flowing into the road. I don't want to see an accident happen on my street to a neighbor or to anyone else because of water that has nowhere to go but freeze into the road. So as a mom, as a fellow young street neighbor, I have concerns.
I don't know if the mic was on when I originally talked. My name's Timothy Amos. I'm going to kind of read more so the email that we sent because it was sent later this afternoon. You may not have received it, most likely did not receive it, just to help me keep on track. So we are the direct neighbors and adjacent with 3118 Grassy Road. We abut to the west portion of the property in question. We're deeply concerned by the letter we received from the township stating the quantities in which the landowner has overstepped with regards to bringing fill on his property. We are new to the street as of July 2024, and at that time, in the middle of the summer, we recall there already being damp and swampy portions right between our properties. With the significant elevation changes requested, we are certain that we will receive substantially larger quantities of runoff, which would likely begin to enter our home. At the current time, the landowner has almost doubled his allotted permit quantity. To add insult, he's requested an additional 1,000 truckloads on top of what he's already deposited. How can he attempt to raise his property so drastically with almost 5 times what he originally requested? As a trained but not practicing civil engineer, this decision is not about emotion or feelings. I'm not going to go listing all the bylaws that I referenced. You guys can read through those after the fact.
Yeah.
There's about a page and a half of bylaws that I listed that I believe he is in contravention of. So I've also noticed on the provided grading plan, which I apologize, I know it's supposed to be probably an 11 by 17 on letter form. It's hard to see, so I'm working with what I had. There is a significant amount of deposited fill along the south property line currently, which does not appear on this grading plan in any way, shape, or form. I understand that there's no final grade in place currently, so it's hard to compare, and I don't have the means to measure current grades at this time. But there was significant deposits of fill that, I'm repeating myself, sorry. According to the drawings, along both the west and south borders, there aren't any additional drainage measures. For example, French drains. Protecting neighboring properties does not appear to be part of the design for this build. we've recently noticed that the ditches on the south side of the property have overflowed with water, and it is currently creeping toward the road and has actually frozen solid ice at this time. With the possibility of even more fill added to the property, this could become a safety concern for flooding and icy patches on the road in the winter. This is deeply concerning to ourselves and our many neighbors who drive this street every day. So to summarize, the landowner has currently gone 2,693 cubic meters over his allotment and is further requesting a permit for 12,520 more. This is all on the basis of the applicant has indicated that all material is clean fill to finalize the rear yard grading. I have concerns as to whether the fill that has been placed in the front is clean, based on your letter saying that only the rear yard stuff will be clean. There should be measures taken to ensure what has been put down is safe. Also, the wording in this letter says all the material is clean fill to finalize the rear yard grading. I don't know if you know anything about grading, but you finalize it with topsoil. You don't finalize it with fill. So what is the fill? What is the chemical composition of the fill? Are there soil reports for the fill from the sites which it has come from? Where are the sites? Where are they coming from?
Can we trust it after lack of
I
trust?
see this as a loophole to get around what is present underneath the topsoil. Based on the excess amount already, how can this be taken as fact? The owner was issued a permit, stated he would follow it, and then didn't. We need to ensure what has been placed is in accordance with the Environmental Protection Act, and we need to protect our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone still in the audience or online that wishes to speak to the matter? Please come forward, state your name. You guys can figure out which one comes first.
Good morning, afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
My name's Chris Negus. I've been a resident of Yonge Street for 20-odd years. And my biggest concern is that we as a community have had to deal with truck traffic, not 1,000 trucks, not 2,000 trucks, but tens of thousands of trucks up and down our road, making a mess, putting rocks and stuff on the road. We've had 2 projects down the street to the tune of tens of thousands of trucks. And it just seems to be continuing and continuing and continuing over the time that I've been there. It's been 10 years of truck traffic. The fill that they've got in there now, from my point of view, and I'm not an expert on grading land, seems to be enough from what I can see. I don't see the point in raising the land so high that they force water to the neighbors' properties or flood the ditches. Enough is enough for the truck traffic alone. We as a community, and I believe my neighbors will agree, we've endured too much truck traffic on that road. Again, to the tune of tens of thousands of trucks. There's 2 projects down the street that have had, again, tens of thousands of trucks. That's what we've been putting up with for the past 10 years. And enough's enough. It's got to stop. This board has to make a decision to say no more truck traffic on Yonge Street. That's basically all I want to say.
Hello, my name is Chris Tementis. My family has a farm at 8300 Yonge Street. Just a quick note, I'm sure, like many of my neighbors said, like we question the transparency here, and myself, my sister back there, my parents, we drive by a dozen times a day checking our farms, and we see the fill is full of concrete, bricks, all sorts of various material. And by definition, clean fill does include bricks and concrete and all these things, but I'm sure many of you guys have tried to grow something before and have figured out that concrete and bricks aren't exactly fertile, and I somewhat question the legitimacy of this orchard, because I don't think an orchard would exactly grow very well in bricks and concrete. Just a quick note. That was, I think my neighbors covered most of our concerns, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward? In a moment, I'll be talking about this perhaps being the only meeting, so if you wish to come forward, this is the time to do it. Oh, go ahead. No?
Thank you. My name is Mariana Falvis, and I've lived in Grassy for 50 years. And my husband's parents lived another 30 years before that. Grassy is farmland, and it is a beautiful place to live. Last summer, I'm a senior, so last summer I went out to get my mail, and I'm noticing, my goodness, where are all these trucks coming from? And as I was getting my mail, I don't know if the truck driver saw me or not, but he was going pretty fast, and I almost, with the backdraft, got pushed into the ditch. And I don't think that's a good thing, but, you know, maybe he didn't see me. I'm a little woman. But I find that Grassy is a land that needs to be farmed. And I believe that these trucks need to cease and desist. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Kevin's still no one online trying to get in. Thank you. So I'm not seeing any more hands. So I would like to stress that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. If you're attending virtually and would like to provide comments, you can do so by one of the two options. Using a computer or smartphone, select to raise your hand. That can be controlled in the Zoom options listed on your screen. Option 2 would be using a landline or telephone. Press *9. This will notify staff that you have raised your hand. Once you've been acknowledged to speak, please unmute your microphone. Members of committee. Do any members of committee have an oral or written submission on the proposed site application you've just been listening to? Please note that that these comments may be the only time you have to make comments on this, and your comments, if they are not known, may not advance to a future recommendation report. Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, there is a lot of concerns with this property. Obviously, we have a property owner. It's very unfortunate that, you know, especially with an application, again, that they're not here this evening to. Sorry if my throat's a little raspy at the time of year. That they were not here present to actually answer some of the constituents' questions that they have. I drive this site on a regular basis. I obviously access, my children go to school in Grimsby, so going to pick them up, so I see it on a daily basis. It's very unfortunate, and we just found out in this committee that, you know, they exceeded the amount of loads once we got our report this week, that they're over 60%, which is very unfortunate. That's not what anyone on this committee was expecting, and nor did we want. You know, when someone comes to apply to build a home, to raise their family in West Lincoln, as a council, we're always up for anyone coming to live in our great town that we all live in and that we all enjoy to. So when someone wants to build and live here, we always encourage them, sure, why not? But when they break the rules, I have a problem with that. They've broken the rules by obviously 60%, which, you know, it's quite excessive. I think there's enough fill on the site. It needs to be cleaned up. I've seen the back of this property. It's actually high. There's going to be drainage issues. I've campaigned in that area. I've lived in West Lincoln for 40 years. I know the ditching issues that are out there for the, obviously, flooding issues. I've had calls in the past about Grassy. So any change to grading on a 10-acre property is a big issue, especially when those ditches are full of water and water's not running. My other concern is I've had calls in the past about fill material coming in and where it's coming in for and contaminating wells, and that's a big issue we had. And back in the day, we have as a committee and a council, we have put a site alteration bylaw in effect. And this is supposed to cover under these things. Now, if we have a lawbreaker breaking the law here, bringing in material, I have a big issue with that. The material needs to be cleaned up on this site, and it needs to be put to rest. Actually, to come to apply to this committee for more fill after you broken the rules, I'm sorry. I don't think anybody standing here could agree on something like that. So, myself, I think, it's very unfortunate because we encourage people to come live here, but abide by the rules. We have a township working with constituents to help them build their home, to help them get to the place by not affecting the residents that live in our area. The other concern I have is, if you're driving our roads right now, with the weather, they're disintegrating. All this truck traffic going on these roads are disintegrating our roads. And that's another issue I'm having. We're swerving around potholes this time of year because of, issues like this. 400 or 500 trucks on a Saturday, rain days, damaging our roads. And then we come to this thaw in February and March, and then boom, we're having issues with the roads. So again, I am deeply, deeply upset on we help residents come live in our community. We try to help them, say, hey, come build your home, and you get an applicant like this that goes and bends the rules for what apparent reason I have no idea, but bends the rules and upsets the residents that have lived here for well over 50 years. Madam Chair, I have a big issue with this, and I just wanted to get my comments on the record for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetta. I'm going to go this way for a change. So, Councillor Bradrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are very, very similar to Councillor Trombetta's, and so I'll keep it very brief. I don't want to hear of any of you having that loss of your quality of life, and I think that all of us sitting here are sorry to hear that. We definitely, at least for myself, I will have more questions when this comes up further in our agenda, where we can ask staff some more pertinent questions about the status and perhaps getting some advice on where we can go from here. So I hope that this gallery stays around for the remainder of the meeting after this public portion, so that you can hear some more fulsome questions that will be coming from the remainder of council and have a better understanding of what the next steps might look like when you go home tonight. And that's all my comments.
Machek.
Yes, I just want to, through the chair, just want to thank those that presented. I thought that it was excellent. I'm new to council, so to get this kind of information is very helpful for myself and I'm sure my colleagues when making decisions, and I too look forward to hearing back from staff. But I just want to thank everyone for coming. It was an excellent job by those that presented. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Machek. Mayor Ganan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to our director. So as I'm reading the report, and I don't know if it's still true, so I'm actually looking for verification, there was to be a deposit. I'm very concerned about everything we've heard, but I'm also concerned about the roads, as Councillor Trombetta was saying. And I know there was to be a deposit, and then in the report that we did receive, it said that deposit was never received. So is that still factual?
Through the chair to Mayor Ganan, we couldn't find any record of the township receiving the $7,000 road security deposit for the initial permit application. So we're fairly certain none was provided to the township.
Okay, thank you. So we have spent a lot of time going through our budget in the last little while, and we know about the condition of many of our roads. And the roads that have been in reasonable condition, we want to stay that way. So obviously the number of truckloads that have been already to this site have caused some deterioration on the roads. Whether this goes forward or not, do we have some recourse to try to secure at least that, to fix what's happened to the roads already?
Through the chair to Mayor Ganan, we did ask Operations Infrastructure Group if they could send a roads crew down there to have a look at the roads, because at the time of the writing this report, and still right now, we don't have an understanding if there was deterioration. And if there was, we don't understand the value of that deterioration that may have occurred on the roads. So we did ask them today if they could send a crew down there to have a look at the road. And I guess we'll start with understanding if that road has been damaged because of any trucks. And if it has, we would try to work with the owner to have that restored. Without having that security would make it a little bit more challenging, but the applicants have cooperated with township staff through this process so far. So,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, or sorry, Madam Chair. Through
As
you,
we-
there you go, on the other side. Through the staff, I got a few questions here. I will just mention real briefly, like in hearing that, like in understanding that a deposit hasn't been received, like how is this not stopped? Honestly, this should have been stopped right in its tracks. As soon as we discovered that, they should not have been permitted to go forward. So I'm a little disappointed in learning of that piece among everything else. I guess my question to you, Madam Chair, to any member of staff here, we heard tonight that there was a verbal agreement. Who was that verbal agreement with?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley, in the package, they initially provided an application to the township using our online form, which doesn't provide them a lot of room to provide a lot of information. So we had reached out after that to ask for some more information. So I believe that's included in their application. And you'll see that they mentioned some former staff and current staff that they met on site. And the agreement was with the former staff, supposedly, a verbal agreement that and they explained it to us, and our understanding is that agreement was to expand the area where fill could be placed on the property. So the initial application was around the house, and they wanted to expand this fill in the rear yard. In our discussions with the applicant after this was made aware to staff, there was nothing in writing. There appeared to still be no verbal agreement around additional fill being brought to the property. It was only regarding the location of the fill that was already approved. So there was a lot of things unclear. And so we can't say for sure what was said in that meeting or not. The staff that are dealing with this today. But what we can say is upon receiving the order, they did stop hauling, and they have worked with staff to provide us the information that we did seek. And they have indicated that they believe it was a misunderstanding. So that's all I can provide at this time.
Convenient, but okay. Thank you. And not so much convenient for you, but meaning considering that they allege that there was an agreement there that we can't prove one way or another. I guess my other question to you, Madam Chair, is so I don't have a crystal ball, but anticipating a couple of different options, I know we got to look at as a committee and as a council what the next steps are and how that looks. We're not making a decision tonight, Madam Chair. I realize that tonight's just to allow staff to kind of go back and do their homework and come back to council. But I guess my question is trying to be a little bit more proactive in understanding what the options are down the road. So you, Madam Chair, to again any member of staff or any member of staff, how with the OLT. So the part of this can be appealed and part of it can't be. If I could just get you to kind of state for the record there what part of this can actually be appealed and what part can't be, because I think it's a really important message for members here, members in the community to understand what happens should council not support this at a later date. It doesn't stop. You know, part of this can still be challenged and the province can overturn our decision. So I just want that kind of very clear and open there.
So through the chair to Councillor Riley, under our site alteration bylaw, there's only one mechanism for appeal, and that's anything under 1,000 loads of fill is within the director's ability to approve. But however, if the director decides not to approve that amount of fill, they can only appeal to the council. Council is the highest authority under this bylaw. There's no further appeal beyond council's decision. This isn't under the Planning Act. This is a separate bylaw, I believe, that would have been put in place under the Municipal Act. So there is no appeal abilities either for neighbors or for the owner if people were dissatisfied with the result of the vote of council.
Okay, so council has the final say on this particular file?
Under our bylaw, that is correct, yes.
Okay, well, that's a refreshing change. We're often challenged by the courts, and the courts don't always agree with us. The other question that was brought up, and certainly resonated with me, is road safety. So through Madam Chair to any member of staff, who absorbs liability should somebody get in an accident as a result of this information now that it's out there that there appears to be, or allegedly, a drainage issue that is creating a hazard on the roadway?
Yeah, Madam Chair, legal advice is best sought by counsel within closed as opposed to providing it publicly. So we're happy to come back with that perhaps at the next meeting, but we'd prefer to do that in closed.
Okay, understandable.
I believe there's a lot of questions that I'm seeing and hearing that may better be asked prior to the next meeting where a report will be.
Oh, absolutely, and I realize that. I think, in understanding what steps ahead, I just wanted to figure that was an easy question to ask if it was a simple one to provide, but if legal's required, then legal's required, and that's just to protect the municipality. And lastly, something else I really wanted to inquire on. There is a couple comments that reference that the township had dropped the ball or made an error in judgment. To provide clarity through Madam Chair to, again, any member of staff, is this township in the wrong in any capacity of this at this point, or is it just how it's perceived?
I think we need to ask that question in camera as well.
I'm not looking for names. I'm just looking to clarify.
It's just that if we are seeking
to
to determine if there is legal wrongdoing on behalf of staff or council, that would be better done after a full examination by our staff and brought through legal counsel to advise us as to what we should have done.
Okay, I was just trying to do it in a more transparent
I understand,
but that's fine. Okay, so that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Anyone having further question? I just have one question that I really do want to understand, because in years gone by, what propagated the whole idea of a site alteration bylaw was the number of trucks that were coming into West Lincoln, and they were arriving from parts unknown across Ontario. And having been on council at that time, I know we sourced out where they were coming from and ensured that they were a clean fill, but that wasn't, it was very hard and very time consuming. Were those trucks back in the early teen years, were they coming up and using Grassy Road as their entranceway into West Lincoln? Because the talk about thousands of trucks for a number of years disturbs me, and I just want to know if that was in the past used as the access.
I'm not familiar with that aspect. We'd have to probably take that back and look at that historical nature of the use of that road, and maybe there's some employees of the township that have more familiarity with that. In our public works side, I heard some other sites being referenced here.
I was just going to ask if
I think I'm aware of those, but I'd have to double check if those are the properties that some of the public had mentioned were the properties that were receiving that fill. But if they can provide that, or if they have provided that in writing, we can look at that. I know there's a couple construction projects going on Yonge Street with new houses and stuff. I'm sure that's contributing to some of the trucks as well. So staff will have a look at what's going on and what has been the historical use of Grassy Road for trucks, and see if we can provide some light on that in our next report.
I know we did establish truck routes, so I'd be happy to wait and hear what information in researching the files there was, so that we have a clear understanding of what and how Grassy Road and Yonge Street have been used in the past. Councillor Riley.
Through you, Madam Chair, just actually to backpack your question is something I had here as well. I guess my question to you, to our director, is can we put further restrictions or regulations on this road moving forward and similar roads in its in its nature there to limit the types of vehicles and their weight capacity from, to prevent them from damaging the road. Is that something that's within our scope to do?
Through the chair to Councilor Riley, that's something I think that we'd have to take back to our operations department to, I believe that's probably in their realm, but if there's concerns about that, I believe this group can take that back to that committee and see what the current regulations are on that road and see if there's anything that we can do to further protect the property owners in this area.
And I see the CAO is taking copious notes here, so I'm sure that there will be questions asked of all departments so that we can have a comprehensive understanding as it comes back. That was a good question. And there's a lot to this. So seeing no more questions by the members of committee, I'm going to state that be advised that an information report is being considered by the committee this evening. Please be advised that once committee and/or council have made a decision with respect to the site alteration application, and if approved by council, a notice of their passing will be circulated. If you wish to be notified of council's decision, please ensure that you email the township clerk, Justin Paylove, at his email address, jpaylove@westlincoln.ca. Anyone interested in observing council and/or committee discussions about a particular bylaw should not solely rely on mailed notices and thus potentially miss the opportunity to attend public applicable meetings. It is suggested that you watch the township's website for postings of agendas to review items that will be discussed at council and/or committee meetings. The agendas for meetings are posted on the township's website after 4 p.m. on the Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, meeting schedules are also posted on the township's website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you contact the township clerk to advise of your request and include your email address along with your mailing address and your phone number. Pardon me, this public meeting with respect to the proposed site alteration application amendment is concluded at the hour of 7:39. I think we'll take a couple minutes just to allow those to take a stretch or Thank you. We have a second public meeting this evening. This is a public meeting regarding street naming of the crossings on the 20 North condominium development. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the Municipal Act SO 2001, Chapter 25, and the Township of West Lincoln's procedural bylaw and street naming bylaw policy, being policy POL-PD-01-11 for the street naming of the 20 North condominium development. The name suggested is Callum Drive. The Township of West Lincoln's procedural bylaw states that any matter pertaining to the naming of a highway and/or private road in a plan of subdivision or plan of condominium for which notice is required to be given, notice shall be published at least once, and the date of publication being at least 7 days prior to the council meeting indicated in the notice. Mr. Clerk, please advise of the method and dates by which public notice was given.
Proper notice was circulated to applicable agencies and advertised on the township's website, as well as advertised in local newspapers on February 7th, 2025.
Thank you very much. Ms. Smythe, will you please explain the purpose of the street naming? Renaming, sorry.
Yes, thank you. My presentation won't be as exciting as the previous one, but I will give a brief. So good evening, Madam Chair, committee, and council members of those in public. I am here to present that information on the proposed street name for crossings on the 20 North, the condominium development. Just for some context, this condominium community is draft plan approved for 10 units located on the north side of 20 Mile Creek on the former Dunville Spur rail line off of St. Catherine Street here in Smithville. This is a continuation, or rather an extension, of the 24-unit condominium community located on the south side of 20 Mile Creek, named Carter Drive, which is fully constructed. The owner, DeHaan Homes, Inc., has requested the new name of this private street to be named Callum Drive. This name is not on the township's approved site street name list under the street naming policy, POL-PD-01-11, and instead has been requested to be named after a family member. Pursuant to the township street naming policy, the Township of West Lincoln is required to approve an appropriate street name for such development and is to hold at least one meeting for the public. Please note that this is also a condition of draft plan of condominium approval, and if approved, the requested street name will clear a condition to the satisfaction of the township, and the street will remain under private ownership. And the township will not assume ownership of the road, and all maintenance will be the responsibility of the condominium corporation. As noted in the proposal, the street name is Callum Drive. Staff can also confirm that as part of the circulation of this notice, that there were no emergency services related issues to the proposed name. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that in the chamber there's no one wishing to speak with regard to this. Kevin, is there anyone online wishing to speak to this matter?
Not seeing any, Madam Chair.
And the proponent is not online either. Okay. I'll read this just in case anybody is out there listening. Are there any oral or written submissions from anyone present in the meeting regarding the street naming? I would like to stress that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. Therefore, if any members of the public that are in attendance at this public meeting would like to make comments and/or provide written comments, they should do so now. If you are attending virtually and would like to provide comments, you can do so by one of two options: using a computer or smartphone to select the raise your hand control that can be found in the Zoom options, or using a landline or telephone and dial *9. This will notify staff that you have raised your hand. Once you've been acknowledged to speak, please unmute your microphone, and once you've finished, please mute your microphone again. Prior to speaking, please provide your name and address for the record. Having been advised that no people are present or online, do any members of committee have any oral or written submissions regarding the street naming consideration? Comments? I'm going to start with the mayor this time and go around this way.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out that when the other side, the south side condominium, both of those names, Carter and Callum, came before us, and we selected Carter at that particular time. This is the second grandson, and so those were the two grandson names that Mr. DeHaan wanted to name his two private streets after. And so to me, this seems like a reasonable request, but I wasn't sure whether people would remember or were here when Carter Drive was named, and I just thought I'd point out that this was the other name at that time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, pardon me, Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to our director, when was the last time we pulled a name from our list? Because I feel like it's been a little while. So,
Sorry, could you just clarify, pulled the name?
so from their naming list, when was the last time we actually pulled a name? From my
actually
recollection,
used one.
Yeah, from my recollection, we've been going. I know half the names are supposed to come from that list. So,
Yeah, so senior planner Susan Spice has said it was Mars, and I also believe Rosemont Homes picked Jayla Crescent. I think Jayla was on our list as well.
so it's been about 4 or 5 years. Do you, Madam Chair?
Been a few years. We don't process too many of these new street naming applications, but it's probably about half pick the names from the list, and half come to council with names not from the list. And the policy, as Susan has mentioned, requires the developer to pick up to half the names, or at least half of the names from that list.
So, if I may, so in theory, because this is a second road, this person would not be picking half their streets from the list. They would be picking 2 of their own. Through you, Madam Chair, to the director. They would not be meeting that requirement, is what I'm asking.
These are 2 completely separate developments, but the way the policy is worded is for each of their developments, at least half the names have to come from the list. So our interpretation is if you only have one road, it should really come from the list. However, that list is based on historical surnames in the township, which was put together by the Heritage Committee, and I think revised back in 2017 or 2018 to add a few more names. And I believe there may have even been a wish from council to have another look at that and maybe look at the entire policy as opposed to just the street naming list, because there's a lot of really prominent surnames in that list, as well as there's names of veterans in that list as well. And we want to ensure that the policy also keeps those names for more prominent streets that are going to come up in the township over time. So anyway, yeah, when we get a street naming application, we just do present that name before you. And sometimes we provide a backup name, as was the case when Carter Drive was brought forward. He actually presented 2 names, Carter or Callum, and council at the time picked Carter, neither of which names are on the street naming list. So.
Okay. And then lastly, Madam Chair, I get where the sentiment's coming from, and as a family man myself, I can totally understand that connection they have to the name. I know I would feel better that because we're not having a whole lot of developments lately in the last several years, that we are making use of that list and finding names that might not actually surface. So I would ask that perhaps this goes back to staff to review that list and that we don't make a decision on this name tonight. That would be my request. At the appropriate time, I don't mind putting that motion forward, Madam Chair.
I do think that request was made of staff back a number of months ago. I know I did ask in committee, pre-agenda, whether or not that was still on the books. So I believe they are working on it, and Mr. Borma did say he believes there's an outstanding request. So if you want to, or we can wait till the report comes through, and Mr. Borma. You're right.
So I might have misread I thought we were making a decision tonight on this name.
Right, it is coming
Okay.
back tonight, so.
Yes.
You can put another motion on the table, and.
I'll let members of committee finish their comments and then
Correct.
bring that forward.
So I'm going to keep going around this way this time, so Councillor Trombetta,
Thank
sorry.
you, Madam Chair.
Councillor
Appreciate
Maycheck,
you.
you're last.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me. As I hear some comments around with my colleagues here. We do have some names coming up that are some prominent names that we want to give streets to. Now, I don't want to see some of these prominent, I guess, long-standing names of Smithville, West Lincoln, our great community, being tucked away in a little condominium. That's just not my view on a prominent name. And unfortunately, Trumbetta's not on that list, but it's, you know, it's, but there are some prominent, long-standing names that are on that list that I like to see when we have, my view is I don't want to see one of those prominent names get taken away and stuck in a little condominium where we have new development coming on some major streets where that name can be recognized for our community. That's more or less my view on this. This is a private development, which we are, again, it's owned by the condominium corporation. It's sort of their own little thing. To kind of see, like I said, and I've had this in the past, like, you know, these standard names, Callum, Carter, they're standard names. And when you get into complex names, as in Trumbetta Way, that gets a little too much, I think, for the street naming. But we do have other prominent or well-known names in this community. So these kind of little standard ones in a little condominium corp that's privately owned, I really don't have an issue with. I just, like I said, I want to see the list for our main names, and I know a few of them off the top of my head that are coming up that are looking to get their streets named after. And I don't think they would really, not that they would mind, but I think having a major street or a bigger street named after one of these residents, I think would be more fitting. That's my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetta. Councillor Brederick?
Thank you, Chair. Trumbetta Drive really has a good ring to it to me, but I guess that will be perhaps something that can be discussed at a future meeting. As the Heritage Committee Council rep, it definitely was discussed when we could have Heritage Committee meetings, because currently we do not have enough members to meet an appropriate quorum. And coincidentally, I have sent emails to the director and the CAO in regards to that street naming policy coming up at a future meeting, so that we can have a really good look at what that can look like. And also to acknowledge the Indigenous connections to this community. I think it would be very important to look at it through that lens as well. With the Niagara Indian Center, they're willing to work with us. We've been in contact with them through that Heritage Committee on numerous occasions, but had to kind of let it lie because we have not had quorum to bring our recommendations back to this council. I guess in regards to this particular application, I'd hate to see poor Callum, having an inferior complex in comparison to his cousin or brother. So I would agree with Councillor Trumbetta in regards to it not being a really difficult decision to allow that to happen in this subdivision. That's all.
Councillor Major.
Through you, Madam Chair, just a question. You mentioned that this has happened in the past, that we've allowed people to name streets. Is that a common occurrence? Does it usually get approved by council? Or is it rare that council says, yes, you can name the street after a relative or a grandson?
Through the chair to Councillor Maychek, from my history here, I would say about half the time council has supported names not from our list or from the heritage list, and half the time they have. All street names do go to council for approval. So council has the opportunity to comment on all those, and staff, when a development comes on board, we provide the street naming policy. However, under their application, they can select whatever street they want and try to get council's approval beyond that. So,
I too don't want to see Carter saying to Callum, look at my street, I've got one and you don't. So I think like my colleagues here in terms of the naming.
I have a quick question. In reading the prescribed reading material here tonight, I noticed that it said the proposed street renaming. And that confused me because I believe this street has never been named. That used to be a rail corridor, right? Yeah. So it's just, because I stumbled over the fact that we were renaming. It's okay, I make lots of mistakes.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, I don't believe there is a rename, no. This is just the initial name proposed.
Okay. So I echo the comments of my colleagues, and I do believe that it would be worthwhile to have a broadened naming a group to be used as we look to the future, regardless of whether it's to accommodate growth or the fact that we want to ensure that we balance with historic names or events that occur. I'd like to know we had the policy that would say we would be looking to make sure that we weren't honoring people who, I mean, you can't even honor John A. MacDonald anymore, but I mean, I think we have to be careful, and I'd like to see that. I also worry about those little trombettas who have a nine letter last name who might live on a 14-letter street. They may never get to be able to write their name and address, but so I think we need to be sensitive for those kind of things as well. So I think, as I recall, and I'm happy to have Councillor Riley put forward another motion if required, but I do believe we have one on the books. I think Councillor Bradrick has mentioned that the Historical Committee wants to come forward with some names, but I'd like to see it get more than just historical. I'd like to see it get to be current so that we have a blend of what's going on. And when it comes to condominium roads, no one goes down them, so I'd hate to think that we would name that after some war hero that is never going to be allowed to have his family walk down the street because it's a private property. So how are we leaving this? Mr. Bourma, do you think you have direction now, or are you seeking for us to give you direction to do this formally? Sorry, I just want to get that off the table before we vote on the name.
Yeah, so I believe it's an information report this evening.
Right.
So we will have to come back for a recommendation report. And if the CAO is approved of this, we'll just add a recommendation that we also update or review the street naming policy and have the Heritage Committee, once functional, review the list of names. And we can include that recommendation into that recommendation report as well, if that is appropriate.
I think I understand what you just said. In other words, we're going to try and review the street naming policy to include not just historic names, but what we've talked about tonight. Mr. CAO, have you got any difference to that recommendation?
So long as it's always easier in these instances if there is a resolution of council directing a piece of work, but I think we can take the intent of council tonight and get that recommendation onto your report next month.
So, Madam Chair, we're still in our public meeting.
Yes.
And this does come up under staff reports.
We do. I just didn't want to leave the item until we got out of this.
And I understand that, but I think the discussion that we're now having.
It's okay. Yes, we are going to leave it to the report. Councillor Riley, do you have anything?
So, yes, and the mayor's correct. I'll save my additional comment for when the report comes up, and we'll deal with it there.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay. Please be advised that an information report is being considered by the Planning Committee this evening, and the recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future Planning Committee and/or Council. Everyone is invited to stay in attendance to hear the committee's comments and/or recommendation with respect to the application, which will take place shortly following the conclusion of this public meeting. Those who wish to be advised of any subsequent meetings and/or decisions on this matter may email the Township Clerk, Justin Paylove, at jpaylove@westlincoln.ca. This public meeting with respect to the proposed street naming is concluded at the hour of 8:02. For information, I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Riley and Mayor Ganan. Comments? Yes. The whole thing? My mic was on.
Your mic was on, yes, but I hit the button and
No problem. We have a motion before us by Susan Smythe, our director, our senior planner and the director of growth. It is an information report for proposed street naming of crossings on the 20 North Draft Plan of Condominium, file 2100-072-08. It is an information report, PD 08-2025, titled Information Report for the Proposed Street Naming for Crossings on the 20 North Draft Plan of Condominium, file 2100-072-08, dated March 3rd, 2025, and the motion is to be received for information. I have a mover and a seconder, Councillor William Riley and Mayor Ganan. Comments? Councillor Riley.
Thank you. Use my full name there. I thought I was in trouble by my mom.
The clerk actually put it in there, sorry.
Perfect. Yeah, so you, Madam Chair, two members of committee and staff. So I get what the consensus is, and I certainly understand that, and I'll respect the will of council. I would say one of the things we do have to be careful is last thing we want to do is set a precedent. If we're giving one developer all the name choices that they want every time they bring development forward, and then we have to play hardball or be a little bit more hold the line in a matter of speaking when we have to respect that name list with other developments that are to come. I would also say this particular location is right off downtown Smithville. It's right across from the Dennis Drive area. So I don't think whatever name does come forward, I hope staff can provide a couple of names as options should council at the time not, should like to entertain more than one option to take that into consideration. I certainly would like to see that. I know there was an ask, maybe indirect resolution or at least intent. I know it'd make me feel better to know that we looked at a few names and then collectively we make a decision from there than just going with one name that's been provided. And again, I would just caution a little bit of a caution, I guess. I would just express a little bit of caution, just that it doesn't look like we're favoring one developer over others, because we have had others in the past bring names forward that we haven't supported, and we've gone with the name list. I'd hate to think that they would take that personally. So at that point, that's all my comments.
Councillor Trombetta.
Sorry, just some look. There's no motion coming. Councillor Riley or it's getting tied into.
This is an information report. Okay. So there will be, that's what was just mentioned, through you, Madam Chair. I thought it was coming tonight as well, but then with reading this and then hearing staff's explanation, they mentioned that there will be a report coming at a later date. So we're actually not making the decision tonight.
So is that good enough? Because I was going to answer that for you, but okay, thank you. So there is no motion. This is a receive for information report. If there's any other questions with regard to the naming or the naming policy, you'll be able to speak to that at the next meeting when it's brought back. And so seeing no other questions,
Ready to vote.
I am going to ask for the question. Mr. Clerk, can you please put that forward? Maybe. That motion carries. So items GS 11-25, which is our CBO and Director of Growth and Sustainability, Mr. Boerma, have a report here, which is the Building Department Annual Budget Report. Mr. Boerma, did you want to speak to this, or it's pretty self-explanatory, but...
Yes, this is just an annual report that's required by the Act. Our CBO is able to answer questions. I don't think he has anything prepared to present, but if there's any questions, he's able to take those back or answer them.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us tonight, Mr. Agro. The motion is that information report Building-03-2025, titled 2023 Building Department Annual Budget Report, dated March 3rd, be received for information. I need a mover and a seconder for that report. Counselor Trombetta, Counselor Maychuk. Questions or concerns? All right, could we have the vote for that one brought up, please? Thank you, that carries. So item GS 12-25, which is a report from the Director of Growth and Sustainability. It's a recommendation report, PD 10-2025, report on energy conservation demand management plan for 2024 to 2029. The recommendations to that report are that recommendation report PD 10-2025 titled Recommendation Report Conservation and Energy Demand Management Plan 2024 to 2029 dated March 3rd be received, and that the committee and council adopt the Energy and Conservation Demand Management Plan 2024 to 2029 as found in Schedule A of this report. I need a mover and a seconder for that report. Councillor Bradrick and Councillor Trombetta. Comments or questions? Can you please bring up the vote for that one, Mr. Clerk? That carries. GS 13-25, which is a site information report, PD 09-2025, a site alteration report permit 3118 Grassy Road. And the motion on that is that information report PD 09-2025 titled Information Report Site Alteration Permit 311 Grassy Road dated March 3rd be received for information. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Maychuk, Mayor Ganan. Comments? Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two comments. One for everybody that's probably still watching. The decision for this, this is again, just is only for information this evening, so I want everybody to be aware of that, that is watching from home or wherever. The decision, once this is going to be completed, through Madam Chair to Director, timeframe?
Through the chair to Councillor Trombetta, our plan is to take this back on April 14th, Growth and Sustainability Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. And one more comment, Madam Chair, because it's better to, you kind of did, Councillor Riley mentioned something, and then we had to stop ourselves because we're getting into an area that could potentially get into a closed session. But, you know, the comment was publicly made by the resident that, you know, he called and he was told that we were too busy. So through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. CAO, I think we do need a closed session. And again, there has been some staff changes around that time. So this committee is fully aware of that. Decisions were probably made, again, probably before your time, I would say, with this issue. So again, just like the resident said that he called and the response to that resident that we were too busy and we couldn't get to the call, I think that's, you know, hearing that from any resident as a councillor, it's, and I can see your face is, it's not something we strive for. We strive for efficiency in this municipality. So I think, like Councillor Riley was onto something, and Madam Chair, you know, kind of summed it up by saying we do need to close, and if it's the will of council, I think we should go into, not this moment, but at the appropriate moment, go into a closed session to discuss these sort of situations that led up to a full gallery this evening. Mr. CAO, or Madam Chair to Mr. CAO.
Yes, yes, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Councillor Trombetta. Certainly, I think what we're going to do, and I've sent some communication out to staff already on this. I think we need to bring forward the procedure for accepting the planning fees, how those are processed and tracked against applications as they move forward. That kind of a review is an open matter, if there's anything staff specific that would bring us into close. But I think that what council would need to see to have confidence in the process is an open report as to how this is being managed and what the procedure is administratively for accepting and processing the fees. With respect to complaints being missed or whether or not we've been too busy to respond, that would also be an open matter, and we will bring that report as soon as we can.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Thank you,
It-
Madam Chair.
You're welcome. And for clarity, just before we go any further, there was some discussion about individuals and about information. So anything that requires us to move into closed will be done, and that report will come forward as well, just for clarity for this council. Okay, because Councillor Riley did ask for that, and I'm not trying to ignore the ask, but I just didn't think it was appropriate tonight in open.
Just to confirm, sorry, I don't mean to take up the time, but if it is people-related, identifiable individuals will be taken into close.
Thank you. Mayor Ganan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to have some clarification about, so we've had a public meeting tonight, and they've asked for more loads, but it's not coming back till April 14th. So I'm wondering what the status is now. Is this on hold? Can we enforce that if it is? Or will we have to have somebody sitting out there monitoring whether more loads are coming in? I think the residents need to be reassured that this public meeting has caused a stop in this, if that's true, or told otherwise if it's true otherwise. So through you, Madam Chair, to our director, please, where do we stand now in terms of truckloads of fill?
So through the chair to Mayor Ganan, I don't think I can get into a bylaw specifics other than what I mentioned in my overview, that an order was issued. To our knowledge, no truckloads have gone in since that order was issued.
Okay.
And
And I appreciate that. So will the applicant now be told that that order still stands until further notice? I think is what. And especially because the person wasn't here. Like, I just think we need absolute clarification for the applicant, and then also for the residents, and for us, actually, in case the calls start coming.
yeah, so no additional fill is allowed to be brought to that property until this process is dealt with. And then there's two things that need to be dealt with. It's the surplus of fill that was brought in already, as well as the additional fill they're requesting. So there was some discussion about how much exactly that was, and they have kept pretty good records, so we do know what that was. Originally, they said 700 truckloads were brought in, and as I mentioned in some of my background, some of that was actually related to building materials for the house, so that does get discounted. So from our estimation, based on the information they provided to us, they're actually about 120 loads over what they were supposed to. So they are seeking approval for those 120 loads that they brought, as well as that larger amount in addition that they still want to. How we handle that, the bylaw matters, I think that's something that would probably have to be dealt with in a closed session as well.
And I don't really expect an answer on that. I just want to know where we are as far as that no more load order. Whatever happens moving forward is fine, as long as we all know where it stands right now, and when it comes back, it comes back. So thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a couple of questions. One, I guess just backpack on the mayor there. I currently agree, or I completely agree. Sorry, I should say. I think the biggest thing is they clearly had a misunderstanding originally. We want to make sure there's no misunderstanding now. That's I think the confirmation we're looking for. My two questions here is, one's going to be to the director, one's going to be to the clerk. The first one is, you mentioned in the public meeting that this is a council decision. So through you, Madam Chair, to the director, if council is the final decision maker in this aspect, if council would be open, depending on what consensus of council is, do we even have to burden staff with the report at this time? If based on the evidence that's been provided forward, or the information provided forward, could council decide tonight, if they don't support this information report, does that put that to an end?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley, you'll recall that we changed the process slightly on how we bring reports. Because when an application is received, we have to follow that through to a decision. So this information report is only to be received for information. And I think there is still value in having the applicants take back some of the comments that they heard this evening, and at least try to present their side of the coin, I guess, on how they believe that they can address those concerns, and then staff can go through that and determine if that's valid or not, as well as have an opportunity to look through the, there's probably something around 20 plus public submissions that we received that we have not had an opportunity to look at today. And I think it would be beneficial for council to also have all that information in front of them when they're making a decision.
Okay, and through you for a follow-up on that question there, Madam Chair. The reason I ask that is because I know this is not appealable to the OLT, and you've mentioned that we were the last line of defense, so obviously a motion to not pursue it would probably have to take place if that was the case. I guess I was just looking to understand what the options were in the given moment here. So again, this is a situation where that's what I was going to ask. My question was, through you, Madam Chair, is it fair to understand or assume that there was, and I might have missed in the report here, the applicant had to pay for tonight's public meeting, like they had to pay the application, there was an application fee associated with it, and then because of that, that's more of an ethical thing? Is that fair to assume?
Through the chair, correct, they did submit an application, a new application and a new fee, in addition to the application fee that they would have submitted last year. So.
Okay, perfect. And hearing that might be our best recourse as far as getting a deposit. So I get that. So my last question, Madam Chair, is to you, to the clerk. So tonight we're missing one of our colleagues. He's, for personal reasons, he's taking the month off. And so my question is, moving forward, I see a situation coming back when he returns, let's say in April, should he be able to return. Will anybody who's not present in the public meeting actually be able to speak to this? Because this actually falls in his ward, and I think we can all assume how he's going to feel about this, but not fair to assume anything. He needs to speak for himself in terms of this particular matter in his particular ward, but I think he's going to want to speak to this, but he's not here tonight. So what problem does that pose for that member of council? To the clerk, Madam Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Riley and for the benefit of the rest of council, the way that this would be approached, as it is not a public meeting under the Planning Act, however, it still falls under a procedural bylaw as a public meeting and would be treated as such. So in this instance where the councillor is not present for the public meeting, they would not be able to address the report and also the concerns from the residents, and would also not be advised to vote on the matters. So the recommendation that would come from staff in the April meeting, that councillor would recuse themselves from voting.
Okay, and so for clarity, his voice would remain silent. He would not be able to represent those in his ward as a result of this?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley, the councillor would not be able to vote on this item, and it does fall in that person's ward.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maychuk.
Quick question through you, Madam Chair. I think to the clerk. I know they've communicated to the individual or the landowner. Is there an opportunity that's easy for you in terms of reaching out to these residents that have expressed concern that all work is ceasing at least till April 14th, where a report comes back to council?
Through the chair to Councillor Maychuk, to clarify the concerns and confusion from residents, I don't see an issue with that. That is readily available to me. We can advise, and also it is written into our procedures that we do advise them of our decision. I do not see a harm from administration side just to advise them of the stop work order. That is just an action that administration has already taken. The individuals who have noted public concerns, as well as over the weekend and the past week, have all noted them to me. I have contact information to them. I can readily send that through those channels as well. Does that capture everybody? Probably not. However, the individuals that have reached out can be addressed.
Seeing no other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, I had my hand up.
I'm sorry.
I thought you saw me before.
I did, and then I thought you went away. Sorry.
I'm right here.
Sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Through
Councillor
you-
Bradford, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the Director. You may have already addressed this, and perhaps I missed it. Is there, and if so, what are the penalties that would be imposed on the landowner for bringing in the extra soil?
Through the chair, I'll talk in a general sense, not specific to this file, but the site alteration bylaw can be enforced multiple ways. It can be enforced through orders, where we can go and take the landowner to court over something like this. It can be large fines can be imposed, and it's also within our administrative monetary penalty AMPS bylaw. So they could be, or in general, people who break our site alteration bylaw could be given a daily fine I believe it's $300 per owner, per property, per day. So that is one action that could be taken. As once again, generally speaking, for those that do not comply with the site alteration bylaw.
So through you, Chair, back to the director in a general way, if there was penalties that were imposed on a landowner in a situation similar to this, and they hadn't paid or addressed those, do we have the ability to hold back occupancy permits and pending any penalties that have not been paid?
Through the chair, I don't actually know that answer. I would suspect not, because the building permit's probably unrelated to the site alteration, but we have our chief building official here, and maybe he would be able to comment on that.
Through the chair, I believe they can still have occupancy. The site alteration would not affect occupancy of a building that is not entirely complete, as long as it meets all the standards of the code to occupy.
Interesting. Thank you. I have another question through you, Chair, back to the director. The one resident mentioned a second septic. Is this home large enough that it requires 2 septic beds, or is it that one is in lieu of the first one, not functioning, and there's just a rough idea of where a second one would go?
Our CBO has actually been on the site, as well as our manager of septic inspections. There is only one septic system on this property, and the location of where that septic system is was not the original location. They did alter the location with permission. So maybe that's where some of the confusion's coming from, but maybe our chief building official can enlighten us more.
Through the chair, the septic system, septic bed has been inspected in the new location, and that's the only bed that's on site, to my recollection.
I assume so. I just wanted to have some clarification because the resident had mentioned that there was 2. So that's all my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Trombetta.
Just real quick, Madam Chair, to Garrett. Why would someone want to raise land for an orchard? Can you, through your technical experience over the years, has that ever came to that someone wanted to raise property for an orchard?
When it was a swamp.
Through the chair to Councillor Trombetta, I have not heard of that. We in West Lincoln don't have a lot of orchards per se.
Trees grow. Why would they want them? Okay.
I'm not aware of that, but that's what they have indicated in their application.
Okay,
so.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no other questions, we do have a duly moved and seconded motion before us. So if I could ask the clerk to bring up the vote on that one. For anybody that is trying to remember what it was an information report for the site alteration be received for information. And the vote is there ahead of you. And that vote carries. Okay, so we move to other business. And other business is for other business matters of an informative nature only. I will go around. Councillor Maychuk, I'll start with you, and we'll go around to see if anyone has anything.
I'm fine.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Gosh, Councillor Riley, or Councillor Rayner has you guys trained. Councillor Trombetta.
I'll speak then.
Go ahead. It's early.
I have nothing, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Riley. William.
Nothing today.
Mayor Ganan.
I do have just a piece of information. Some of you may be aware, and others may not, that the federal government was tasked with giving out recommendations, so many per area, for King Charles III Coronation Medal. And I just thought that I would point out that last Tuesday, February 25th, at the Hall, Grand Oak Culinary Market in Vineland, Peggy Cook, the Reverend Eleanor Clitheroe Bell from St. Luke's, and our own Cliff Travis all received King Charles III Coronation Medal. So I think it's worthy of note this evening. It will seem too far to wait until weeks later for council. So if you run into any of those people, be sure to congratulate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is no items of new business, and we do have to go into closed session for an item. So I will need a motion to go into closed, sorry. The motion is that the confidential report BLDG-04-2025 titled Confidential Recommendation Report, Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal of Temporary Use Bylaw Extension at 9127 Regional Road 20, DeFlavio Pomerantz, file number 1601-010-23, dated March 3rd, 2025, be received. You're right. That's not it. That's a closed motion.
Through the chair, I'll read the motion to go
Good.
into closed. I'll just need a mover and seconder after I read it. That the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. Director of Growth and Sustainability Garrett Borma, regarding OLT Appeal 9127 Regional Road 20. The applicable closed session exemptions that apply are litigation and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege. I just need a mover and seconder. Councillor Riley, Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you.
And I'll just use a vote by hand, please. And that carries. Thank you.
And we are duly reconvened in open session. And having had a session in camera, Mr. Clerk, did you want to bring forward any motions that came from that session?
Through the chair to the rest of council, I will read out the confidential resolution that council just deliberated over. It is the following. That confidential report BLDG-04-2025 titled Confidential Recommendation Report Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal of Temporary Use Bylaw Extension 9127 Regional Road 20 de Flavio Pomerantz file number 1601-010-23 dated March 3rd, 2025 be received, and that administration be directed to vigorously defend council's decision at the Ontario Land Tribunal regarding the denial of the temporary use extension of 9127 Regional Road 20 and report back at a later date.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And having done so, we've concluded the agenda for this evening. So I will declare this meeting complete at 8:57.